Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four: First Steps is increasingly looking like a true reset film that Marvel has so long needed. The takes on Marvel's first family that we're learning about from the cast, clues in the version of New York that was teased in official art by the studio, and even in the brilliant theme song that's already been composed by Michael Giacchino, all of these things have pointed to a dream project that Kevin Feige has been wanting to make for decades. But beyond Galactus, beyond the alternate history, beyond the 60s space race vibes, and beyond the possible Robert Downey Jr. Dr. Doom appearance, what is this movie? Like, I think we know the vibes of the movie, but does anyone know what the hell this movie actually is? Well, looking at all these clues, I think I figured it out. And a reminder that the best way to support what we're doing here at New Rockstars is to grab something from our merch store at nerdriot.shop, including one of these Fantastic Four themed designs, the Ben Grimm Cousin Beef shirt. Okay, after San Diego Comic-Con, Entertainment Weekly interviewed Matt Shakman and the cast, Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach, and they talked about having watched the documentary footage of the Apollo 11 crew, the crew that landed on the moon. Matt Shakman said this.
And so I really wanted to take all of that great stuff from Apollo 11 and just imagine that instead of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, it was the Storms and Ben Grimm and Reed Richards heading off into space.
And a little later in the interview, Matt Shakman was asked if we would see Reed, Sue, Johnny, or Ben before they received their powers in this film.
In what ways will we get to see, if at all, them pre-superpowers? Like, is that really where things start here?
I mean, one of the things we decided early on was not to do an origin story. One of the ways we're making our own thing is we're not telling the story of them going up and being changed and starting our story. You know, there's a lot of well-known narrative that leads into that moment, right? And then you're making up your new story starting basically at the end of the first act. And we thought, well, let's just start this thing off on a completely new foot. And so we are beginning after that.
And this makes sense, but then on Marvel's official podcast just a few weeks ago, Vanessa Kirby indicated that part of what she loved about playing her character was the moment the four of them are linked through the extreme events of being irradiated with cosmic rays.
For me, I love the fact that they were humans that went through something really extreme, to read all the comics and to see their journey, their relationship, because any research you do, it's always about how they're so inextricably linked and they just can never separate. And they go through a lot of hard times as well, which I really loved getting to know that. You know?
So that leaves us wondering, what is this movie? Are we going to see the Fantastic Four's origin or not? Yes and no, and yes and both. Marvel Studios has confirmed that Fantastic Four: First Steps will be set in an alternate 1960s New York, inspired by Sid Mead's art and concepts. It's going to be like a Tomorrowland vibe. Now, why are Matt Shakman and Marvel Studios doing that? Well, I think to tell the Fantastic Four movie that they want to tell, they need a clean slate. They need a Marvel universe that's been untouched by any of the history of the Infinity Saga, something that looked more like the Marvel universe in the Silver Age of the early 60s. They needed a 60s Manhattan that truly could be taken over by the popularity and the charm and the power set of the Fantastic Four. And they didn't want to have to worry about having to plug in that Fantastic Four into the history of our world or the history of the MCU, whose future and fate after the 60s we already know. Basically, they need to be able to build a giant launch pad in the middle of the East River and to not have to logically justify it with where Manhattan would go after that. I'm referring to the fact that at San Diego Comic-Con, attendees were given a fantastic fan that, when you flip it over, gives you a map of the Manhattan that we're going to see in this movie. And every time I look at this map, I find a new detail. So of course there is the Baxter Building, which curves down toward an Excelsior launch pad in the middle of the East River. Excelsior, of course, is a nod to Stan Lee's catchphrase and the New York State motto that means ever upward. In the early Fantastic Four comics, the name of the shuttle that they used was the Marvel 1. And you'll notice between the Baxter Building and the launch pad is a circular platform that looks like perhaps a generator or like an arc reactor ring. We also see highlighted the Theater District and Times Square, where it looks like Johnny and Sue's wedding photo on screen. Beneath that, a Future Foundation Globe logo. There are also various subway entrances marked and then arrows on the riverfront pointing to Subterranea, which is the domain of Mole Man, who is confirmed to be in this film, speculated to be played by Paul Walter Hauser. In Jessica's video breaking down the Thing's practical pre-VFX suit, she spotted a background that looked like a drained riverbed and speculated a pretty cool theory about the East River being drained, revealing access points to Mole Man's Subterranea. And hey, fun fact, the Hudson River, once it reaches Manhattan, is technically not a river, but a tidal estuary because it is deeper than the body of water it flows into, which is that part of the Atlantic Ocean. And maybe in this universe, it's deeper because Mole Man has been like digging it out, and he's just blaming it on erosion. Also highlighted on this map is the Flatiron Building. Now, yes, it is a picturesque landmark of Manhattan architecture, but it's also got some interesting Marvel ties. It was the base of operations for damage control, and in the Raimi-verse, it is the location of the Daily Bugle. Even the animated Spectacular Spider-Man also set the Daily Bugle in the Flatiron Building. Beneath that is Yancey Street, the home neighborhood of Ben Grimm, and you can even see Ben's home synagogue right in the middle of it. And then over on Governor's Island, a Fantastic Four clean energy complex, and there are 2 cooling towers in steam, suggesting that Reed Richards might be using either nuclear power or some other less scary form of energy to power the city of Manhattan. Now, I point out all of these details just to demonstrate to you that this is an alternate Marvel Manhattan that's already underway. It's already built up, already established. It's already a fantasy world. And let's think about that. This is not a world in which viewers are meant to think of it as our own world or the outer space of our own world like all other MCU films have been. This is going to feel truly escapist and sci-fi in the coolest possible way. And it's just going to be free in that way compared to the interconnected, well, weight that we're used to feeling with MCU films nowadays. It's not going to be bound down by anything. They're going to drop us into the deep end of that world, a fully functioning Marvel universe, and it's going to be the Marvel universe that is truly Imagineered, the universe that they wish they could have built if they had started over from scratch. So in that regard, I don't think we're going to see only the Fantastic Four of this 1960s New York. There's going to be a Victor Von Doom, there's going to be a Mole Man, and yeah, I think there's going to be a Daily Bugle, the suggestion of a Spider-Man, a Hank Pym, perhaps a Charles Xavier, a Thor. We're going to begin this movie by already seeing the impact of the Fantastic Four on this 1960s New York. And then through flashbacks, probably documentary footage that's being kept by the Future Foundation, and through that we'll see their initial test flight. But we also know from the concept trailer that was shown that there's going to be a shot that's kind of inspired by the movie The Right Stuff, or movies like Apollo 13, in which the 4 of these astronauts are marching toward the Excelsior launch pad. But in this shot, Ben Grimm is already big in the form of the Thing. So that's not their very first test flight. This is them going back out to space, and that's going to be a big part of this movie as they confront a new threat with a bit of confidence that they think they know what they're doing. Obviously, that threat is going to be Galactus, as well as his heralds, Shala Ball, Silver Surfer, and I believe some set photos have even given sightings of Nova Frankie Ray. There's a reason you aren't just shouting personal information at every rando you pass on the street. Who knows what they would do with your email or your phone number? But when you are online, you leave a trail of data behind you that data brokers can package and sell, and Delete Me can help you take that data back. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that helps you reduce the risks of identity theft and scams by removing your data from hundreds of data broker sites. It's super easy to use. It takes 5 minutes to submit your info to Delete Me. Their experts comb through the internet looking for places your data should not be, and then they remove it and send you a report on what they've done. Delete Me works all year long to remove things like your name, address, email address, phone number, and more from data broker sites. And they're constantly adding new features and updating their removal targets to help you get back control over your personal data. Get 20% off Delete Me US consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use promo code ROCKSTARS at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use code ROCKSTARS. Thank you, Delete Me, for sponsoring this portion of the video. So, to break this all down, Act 1, we're going to meet the Fantastic Four as the superheroes they already are, as they're in the process of dealing with threats like Mole Man and various other lower-level Marvel villains. And then we will flash back with Future Foundation documentary footage showing their test flight, as well as various TV appearances they make as celebrities. And it's just going to feel like, hey, this is what the swinging 60s used to feel like. We're going to get some WandaVision vibes. That's why I think they chose Matt Shakman for this. Act 2, the new cosmic threat will emerge. Galactus, his heralds, and the Fantastic Four will go out to space to think they can just confidently negotiate with him. Maybe Johnny will venture out into deep space to find leverage like the ultimate nullifier. Marvel Studios, through that Future Foundation website page, told us to read the Galactus trilogy for a reason. And then Act 3 is going to be a full-on battle for this Earth, and I think they're going to be outmatched. Like in that shot of Galactus peering in through the Baxter building, you definitely see Herbie in the corner there turning around freaking out. I think it's going to end with Reed having to build a survival raft, an abandoned ship, escape to another universe, and this will be where this universe's Victor Von Doom emerges. So yes, the first act of this film is going to remind us of the film that I think is essentially the best Fantastic Four film, the one from 2005. Not that one, this one, Pixar's The Incredibles. Yeah, I didn't misspeak. Brad Bird totally was making a Fantastic Four movie when he made The Incredibles with Pixar. He just used a different name, he swapped around the power sets a little bit and just made them red suited instead of blue. The Underminer, for Christ's sake, was a Mole Man reference. The Incredibles is also set in a stylized retro 60s reality, and it was scored by Michael Giacchino in one of the all-time best Pixar movie scores. And that really is the formula that Marvel Studios is using for this Fantastic Four First Steps movie. And I think it's why the studio has been so confident with sharing Giacchino's already completed theme music for this film, from which I think we can deduce much about the experience of this movie. Marvel Studios flexed its confidence for the Fantastic Four last weekend at the Hollywood Bowl, the Infinity Saga concert, where LA's Philharmonic played a medley of film scores from the past 16 years of Marvel Studios films. Alan Silvestri composed perhaps the most iconic scores that we're familiar with, the Avengers theme, the Captain America theme. Ludwig Göransson composed the award-winning music for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Michael Giacchino composed the music for 2016's Doctor Strange and the Marvel Studios title card music that was first unveiled on that movie and used for most of the MCU films and series thereafter. Giacchino also, of course, directed Werewolf by Night and closed out the night with a post-credit surprise of his new score for Fantastic Four First Steps, which attendees at San Diego Comic-Con and D23 heard pieces of for that film's concept trailer that screened at those events. Friend of the channel, Brandon Davis, attended the show and got footage of the symphony playing the theme.
Let's go.
Yeah, underneath Brandon going, let's go there. Giacchino leads with trumpets and brass to just introduce his main theme. And this is something John Williams loved to do. Specifically, using the trumpets this way stirs our hearts the same kind of way we feel when we hear the opening blast of the Star Wars theme or the opening part of the march of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I think this confident leitmotif is going to be the theme of Reed Richards in the music. Then the score moves into a second movement, a mysterious section that kind of sounds like we're floating in space. And it's led by these kind of playful ha, pa, pa, pa vocals and then these bell chimes. And I think this is going to be the movement of the Invisible Woman, Sue Storm. Then the score shifts into an ominous bass that kind of reminds us of Ennio Morricone's opening notes to John Carpenter's The Thing, which I think has to be a literal nod to Ben Grimm, The Thing. And then there's a section with like some electronic elements, which kind of sounds like the music of Johnny Storm. And then the music climaxes as the choir shrieks the literal name of the team. So you'll notice that this music is composed to be a mix of tones representing the variety of the personalities and power sets of each of these four members of the team. And even within these movements, the number 4 comes back again and again. Dun, 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 dun. Fantastic Four. And I think that's why Kevin Feige keeps saying the Fantastic Four First Steps is the movie he is most excited about, even kind of low-key casting some shade at the 2 movies coming out before it, Captain America Brave New World and Thunderbolts.
But if you want the real answer, if we're trying to get real on this podcast, the answer is the Fantastic Four.
It's because he knows this is going to be a true event that delivers to Marvel nerds the if only we could get this type of dream that the studio was able to achieve back in 2008 with the first Iron Man. It's not just the first steps as kind of a Neil Armstrong reference in a space race movie. It's the first steps he wishes he could have taken. So Evan shared a fascinating theory for this movie over on the Break Room channel based on the latest release of The Ultimates #4, which actually focuses on an alternate universe Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom and could give quite a bit of context for what Marvel Studios Studios is going for with this movie. So go check out that video. Comment down below with your thoughts. Get 20% off Delete Me US consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use promo code ROCKSTARS at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use code ROCKSTARS. Thank you, Delete Me, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Follow me at EA Voss. Subscribe to all 3 channels on the new Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.